Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to our Bachem webinar called Beyond Automation Towards a Smart Factory. My name is Elodie de Cuiper, and I will be moderating today's webinar. Before we start, I would like to inform you that this first part of the webinar has been pre-recorded, but you will have the opportunity to ask your question in the Q&A part down below during the webinar, and they will be answered at the end of the presentations during a live Q&A session. Let me now introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Patrizia Marchetti, Group Leader MSAT at Bachem. Patrizia joined Bachem in 2017, and her team focuses on the design and implementation of new processes and equipment for manufacturing of API. I'm Elodie de Cuiper. I'm part of the Strategy and Science Marketing team at Bachem, and I joined the company in 2020. Before we get into the topic, let me introduce Bachem. Bachem is a leading CDMO for peptides and oligonucleotide API manufacturing. Our success is based on long-term partnership with pharmaceutical and biotech companies to help them in contributing to medicine and ultimately helping the patients worldwide. As a leader in our field, our success relies also on 5 strategic foundations. For today, we will emphasize in particular 2 of these 5, innovation and technology, because we aim to work with our customer to get the best solution for modern manufacturing. It is really important to us to continuously improve and keep a technological leadership. The second pillar that we will be highlighted today is operational excellence and quality. At Bachem, we have a strong tradition of quality and efficiency, and for this and for our customer, we want to set high industry standards. So Bachem is a global company, and we are growing really fast. These past few years, we experienced an increasing demand for tight projects as well as volume for this molecule. To address this and to meet the market demand, we invested heavily into new capacity and capabilities. End of last year, we obtained a capital increase, and we started the expansion and the construction of new tights manufacturing facilities. Our new building and equipment train for large-scale manufacturing for tights will be ready by 2024. And in addition, we bought a new site in central Switzerland, in Aachen, that will be operative in 2030. With our new building under construction at our main site of Bachem at Bubendorf in Switzerland, we have almost when the first phase of commissioning will be completing, we will be already more than a double of our manufacturing capacity for tights. And when this building will be fully operative, we'll be able to create 300 new jobs. We invested 350 million in this building with a particular focus on sustainability with the implementation of green chemistry processes, as well as automation and digitalization, as you can learn later in this webinar with Patrizia. With this, I would like to thank you, and I hand it over to you, Patrizia.
Thank you very much, Elodie, for the introduction. Hello, everyone, also from my side, and welcome to this Bachem webinar on our journey towards a smart factory. I will start this presentation today with an introduction to the concepts of Industry 4.0 and smart factory. I will then give you an overview of Bachem's transformation journey, presenting our roadmap with our major project and key milestones so far. I will talk about one of these projects in detail. This is the project on automation and digitalization of the solid phase peptide synthesis, which is one of our key manufacturing processes at Bachem. I will close this presentation outlining our next steps towards smart manufacturing. Industry 4.0 was brought to life as a term and a concept in 2011 at the Hannover Messe, one of the largest trade fairs on industrial development and automation. The term was introduced to describe the widespread integration of information and communication technologies into the industrial production. Many factories and organizations took interest in this idea as they recognized how significant the impact on the manufacturing industry was, and started developing several initiatives to turn this idea into action plans. So we can say that from that moment, the fourth industrial revolution had begun. Nowadays, Industry 4.0 is often described as the era of cyber-physical systems and the industrial Internet of Things. In other words, we want to describe with this terminology an environment composed of smart devices and systems that communicate to each other and that can capture, send and receive data over modern and fast communication infrastructures. These devices generate a large amount of data, also called big data, which is then used to generate information. This information is then in turn used by factories or organizations to make fast and smart decisions. Factories can improve several aspects of their production processes by implementing Industry 4.0 concepts, such as becoming more efficient and agile, safe and sustainable, and often at the same time also being able to reduce costs. As key enablers for Industry 4.0 from a technological point of view, we can list several advanced or disruptive technologies. To cite a few, digitalization platforms, new algorithms for processing data, such as machine learning, artificial intelligence, and digital twins, fast computational power, and cloud storage, so that, in fact, nowadays, data storage is no longer a barrier. The terms smart factory and smart manufacturing are often used as synonyms for Industry 4.0. With the term Pharma 4.0, we want to refer to the initiative of the International Society of Pharmaceutical Engineering to guide the application of the Industry 4.0 concepts to the pharmaceutical industry specifically. Integration and connectivity are two of the key aspects of Industry 4.0. They are graphically well represented by the automation pyramid, which also represents how information flows within an organization. The pyramid is composed of 4 layers. In the literature, you may find sometimes pyramids with 5. The content is exactly the same, it's only a matter of definition. Level 1 of the pyramid is the level of device management. So here we find field devices such as sensors, actuators, hardware in general. These devices exchange information with level 2, the level of control and automation. On level 2, control is performed by programmable logic controllers or PLCs, and supervision is performed by supervisory control and data acquisition systems or SCADA. SCADA systems can monitor one or more PLCs at the same time and coordinate them together. Level 3 is the level of production management. This level is responsible for planning the production and carrying out supply control and logistics. This layer stores information on products, processes, and equipment. Level 4 is the level of enterprise management. And this level is responsible for the administration of the company resources with a focus on the financial aspects of the process. We find here information on customers, suppliers, and more directly related to our manufacturing process, we find information on process orders, material stocks and flows, material properties such as identification and status. Optionally, there could be an external level if one of these levels are interfaced with an external system, so for example, customers or suppliers. There is a great amount of elements that compose this environment and also many technological options of how to do it. This implies an often unique pyramid for each organization. We will see in this webinar today how we designed ours. At what we can consider the beginning of our journey, our production processes were either manual or semi-automated. In the semi-automated processes, some steps could be carried out without human intervention, and these steps were supervised by SCADA systems. The data generated during the process was saved on local machines, which means it was very decentralized in so-called data silos. We introduced a few years ago a new enterprise resource planning system to support the management of our core business processes. We introduced also a laboratory information management system to support the operations of our laboratories and digitize the documentation towards a so-called paperless lab. So we have introduced the process analytical technology in some of our processes to perform inline analytics and in this way streamline the processes. We will see one example later in this webinar on how we have applied PAT to substitute manual in-process controls. We continue with MES, Manufacturing Execution System. This was implemented to digitalize the operation network and introduce digital recipes and paperless documentation. We will also see more about this later in this webinar. We introduced a computerized maintenance management system as a digital database for our maintenance operations. Full process automation and robotics will be presented in detail for the solid phase peptide synthesis later in this webinar. In the same example, we will also see how we introduce a plant information system as a data historian to archive, organize, and visualize our process data. We will also see how we achieved fully paper-free documentation thanks to the introduction of PI and MES, and how we achieved full vertical integration thanks to the design of new interfaces. As Elodie explained in the introduction to this webinar, we are now going through a significant expansion of our production capacity at the Bubendorf site. We are, in fact, building a new manufacturing facility, the building K. To design this building, we have been applying building information modeling tools, and thanks to the integration of these tools with smart sensors, we will be able to use the tools to accompany also the realization phase and the whole life cycle of the building. In the coming future, we want to further leverage modeling tools to model our processes and create process digital twins to make our operations even smarter. I will start now presenting the project on automation and digitalization of the solid phase peptide synthesis. We selected the SPPS process as one of the first case studies for automation and digitalization because of its high business impact. SPPS is in fact the core technology for us at Bachem for the manufacturing of both peptides and oligonucleotides, or shortly referred to as tides. Peptides consist of chains of amino acid derivatives linked by peptide bonds. The desired peptide is obtained through successive reactions of the amino acid derivatives, one at a time, on an insoluble resin support. The process consists of highly repetitive cycle operations, which take place in two main reactors, the SPPS reactor and the activation reactor. In the SPPS reactor, we perform the synthetic steps of the protection, coupling, and acetylation, while in the activation reactor, we prepare the amino acid solution, which means we solubilize the amino acid derivative and activate prior to transfer to the SPPS reactor for the coupling step. In this project, we targeted the mid-commercial GMP scale, so we are talking about 150 liters vessel size. The new fully automated process shows several benefits with respect to the state-of-the-art process. In the new process, operations are carried out with minimal human intervention. Specifically, we take time-consuming repetitive tasks out of employees' hands and let them be performed by machines. In this way, we allow employees to focus on higher value activities. As a further benefit, the process is more reliable, reproducible, and safe, as we reduce the risks of human error and let machine perform critical or unsafe tasks. Equipment utilization is improved as we can use the machines 24/7 and over weekends. And thus, as a consequence, operating and personnel costs are also significantly reduced. By digitalizing our processes and digitizing data and documentation, we ensure higher data safety and integrity, we achieve higher first-time write rates, and we create a platform for data analytics. Through the interfaces between systems, data is transferred fully automatically, meaning that also these tasks, usually performed by operators, is now performed by machines. Let's see now what we did, starting from the factory floor. From now on, you will find a small pyramid in the top right corner of the slide showing on which level we are. During the presentation, we will go from bottom to top. On the factory floor, we introduced all required devices and controllers to perform all process steps. The controllers are supervised by two SCADA systems. Among the several steps, we found that the most challenging ones for automation were the steps handling powders, such as in our case, the solubilization and activation of the amino acid derivatives. Before this project, these steps were performed completely manually. This means that an operator was manually transferring the powders from a bag into the activation reactor. To automate these tasks, we introduced one of the major innovations of this project, the first Bachem robot operator. We call it BALU, which stands for Bachem Amino Acid Loading Unit. So let's see what BALU does in detail. So BALU can handle the containers with the powders, perform the powder transfer into the activation vessels, clean the amino acid transfer port after the powder transfer to prevent cross-contamination, and on the side, assist with the storage of clean and empty vessels. Thank you, Balu. Process Analytical Technology, or PAT, was also fundamental to achieve full process automation. We use PAT to monitor critical process values directly online and eliminate manual in-process controls. Manual in-process controls consist of several manual activities performed by operators on the factory floor and analytical chemists or scientists in quality control. Furthermore, they require the process to be paused. On the other hand, by integrating inline sensors with the process control system, we can perform our analysis without interrupting the process. Specifically in this project, we successfully introduced PAT to verify that the starting materials have been completely solubilized, and that the starting materials or other critical reagents have been fully washed out from the reactor after specific synthetic steps. Thanks to PAT, cleaning cycles can also be automatically repeated if necessary. We are now on level 3. On level 3, we use the PASTIC suite as a manufacturing execution system. With this software, we can define end-to-end processes, so meaning from the dispensing of the raw material until the packaging of the final API. In MES, we make use of 2 specification types, master batch records as digital recipes for target materials, and equipment-related specifications for the management of equipment types. These specification types substitute paper batch production records. MES features graphical workflows, which we design, approve, and execute fully electronically. During the execution of the process activities, MES records all GMP-relevant batch data, such as process values, events, and alarms. Everything is documented in the electronic batch record, or EBR, which contains, beside header data, also information about the bills of materials, the basic recipe, and the equipment used. One of the most impressive advantages of the EBR is the lean and faster review by exception process. So this means that only exceptions are reviewed in the final batch documentation and not the whole batch documentation itself, as is the case for the traditional batch records. To understand these with numbers, for the paper batch documentation, we need 2 to 3 production persons for the execution and 1 or 2 QA persons for review and release. For the EBR, we need 0, unless deviations occur. In MES, we predefine exception types so that the system itself can automatically create the exceptions during process execution. And we can review exceptions in real time, meaning while the process is still running, for an even faster batch release at the end of the process. Another interesting feature of MES is that with this system, we manage equipment without the need of physical logbooks. Status changes, as shown in the figure on the slide, happen either after workflow steps, such as allocate and deallocate, or after a complete cleaning recipes, such as the changes from not clean to in cleaning and then to cleaned. During process execution, MES performs automatic status checks at specific time points of the process, as we define in the digital recipe. This ensures that we do not use dirty or non-calibrated equipment for subsequent production steps. With MES, we can also track the training status of the operators using the machines. After designing level 2 and level 3, so SCADA and MES, we had to plan the interface between the two and make some choices regarding the tasks of the two systems. The main question here was, how can the two systems work together to guide the process from the beginning until the end, so meaning from the coupling of the first amino acid until the coupling of the last amino acid, without any manual input along the way. In other words, the question was, how do we handle recipes? To answer this question, we defined a 2-level approach consisting of an MES global recipe, the MDR, and several SCADA partial sub-recipes. So the MES global recipe leads the process control system by triggering the SCADA partial sub-recipes, so starting them, and receive information from them when completed, so that MES can start the next one. This is done for all the steps within one cycle to couple the first amino acid, and then for the second one, and then for the last one until the desired product. The SCADA partial subrecipes are defined independently from the batch, so they are modules usable for different batches. Examples can be the protection, coupling, washing, and so on. SCADA subrecipes need three types of parameters to perform their tasks. Basic function parameters, which are used by a specific SCADA subrecipe, and global process parameters, which are global for all SCADA subrecipes. So these two types of parameters are batch specific and therefore defined in the MBR in MES and later transferred from MES to SCADA. Machine parameters are, on the other hand, system specific and are therefore set directly in the SCADA software. We define tolerances for critical process values and alarms for exceeding these tolerances. Alarms are categorized by defining priorities. So we define which alarms have to be addressed immediately and which ones could wait. And also we define who is responsible to jump in if they happen. In SCADA and MES, we have also created alternative workflows to be carried out after critical alarms, such as automatic emergency procedures. For the GMP management of our operations data, we use a plant information system, PI or data historian. The PI system allows for real-time logging and long-term archiving of process data coming from the SCADA system. PI has interfaces with both SCADA and MES, with SCADA to receive the process data, as we just said before, and with MES to make data available so that MES can generate the electronic batch documentation. In PI, we use the asset framework to organize and structure our data and the PI event frames to capture process events. We use PI Vision for remote monitoring of the factory floor so that we can comfortably visualize the plant, the equipment trays and the rooms at any time from our office. And these through a PNID-like user interface. So in detail, on the Historian platform, we save all information needed by MES for the electronic batch record, but usually much more. So we save all set points, actual values, tolerances, alarms and warnings, deviations from main recipe, such as emergency washing steps or manual emergency interventions. We access this data for trending and batch-to-batch comparisons and generally for data analytics. So for example, to perform root cause analysis or a continuous process verification. We are also preparing interfaces for connection with external systems through which our customers can get real-time access to their batch data. At the top of the pyramid, we reach full digitalization by connecting the MES to our ERP system, SAP. Thanks to the interface to SAP, we can perform material verification by scanning barcodes. So in this way, we can check the information on the material, such as material and batch numbers, batch status, and expiry dates. This allows us to eliminate the risk of material loss or mix-up. Furthermore, in SAP, we execute process orders and create bills of materials. Thanks to the interface between MES and SAP, we can perform automatic takeout. So during process execution, in fact, material has to be booked out when consumed. With the manual process, often two persons are needed, one entering information and one witnessing it. This brings risks of manual entry errors or rounding inaccuracies. So MES can do that automatically, having access to information on material consumption from the historian. In SAP, we also manage the cost of goods for our products. This is how the full vertical integration of all systems discussed so far looks like with all the systems on one slide. So we go from the process order in SAP down to the MBR and the manufacturing orders in MES. MES then leads the operations workflow on the factory floor, which in turn performs the required process steps to synthesize the desired product. Operations data is archived, organized, and visualized in the historian and made available to MES to generate the batch documentation. MES finally transfers the information on material consumption to SAP for automatic takeout and costs management. The whole integrated system has been qualified and all new computerized systems and interfaces validated. Specifically, we performed a regular change control for SAP, a computerized system validation process for the historian, MES, and interfaces, and our engineering qualification process for SCADA PLC and the devices. An end-to-end test was successfully performed to assess the functionality of the whole integrated system. This end-to-end test consisted of the synthesis of a peptide at scale. The SPPS process is now fully qualified for automated and digitalized GMP production. Before we reach the end of this talk, I would like to quickly outline how we are moving forward. We are investing in the automation and digitalization of several other processes for the manufacturing of both peptides and oligonucleotides. For example, reactors, filtration systems, lyophilizers, solvent tank farms, and batch and continuous chromatography. Continuous chromatography is another example of innovation at Bachem. We learned in a recent webinar about how Bachem has already successfully performed its first large-scale purification using continuous chromatography. If you missed it, you can find the recording in our virtual showroom, Bachem 360. Back to our digital journey, we are establishing common platforms for data collection and analysis, such as the historian and MES that we saw in the example before. On the factory floor level, we are working on harmonizing the control systems and the devices whenever possible and advantageous, so that we can learn from experience and make use of similar protocols and communication technologies. We are also continuing with our implementation of smart sensors and process analytical technology to benefit from integrated inline analytics. And finally, we want to model our processes to better understand our assets and to be able to predict future performance. And that brings us to the end of this webinar today. Let me close this presentation with a summary of the key points we discussed. At Bachem, we want to embrace a smart future together with our customers. As we saw in the case study presented before, we have implemented a new level of automation and digitalization for the SPPS process, and we want to further expand on this. The key benefits of our transformation journey are an optimized production efficiency to boost our capacity and in this way be able to respond to increases in demand from our customers. Digitalization and digitization to simplify compliance and improve our first-time right rates. Reliable and safe processes, always offering consistent API quality. And last but not least, agile and flexible production to meet our customer needs. Thank you very much for your attention today. I would like now to hand back over to you, Elodie.
Thank you, Patricia, for this very insightful webinar. Before getting to the live Q&A, so first of all, I would like to inform you that we are now live, but before answering the question, we would like to ask you a question. So it's time for a poll. And the question is, have you started your journey towards digital transformation and smart factory yet? So 4 possibilities. Yes, you have started and you are fully automated. Yes, you have started, but you are not there yet. No, maybe you are thinking of it, or no, maybe you just don't see the benefits. So let's see the result of the poll question. So actually, most of you have already started your journey towards your digital transformation and smart factory. Like almost 80%, and 20% of you know, and but still you're thinking of this. Okay, thank you. Then now, Patricia, let's start the questions. So we had some questions on your presentation. The first one is if we use digital twins to improve our efficiency.
Not at the moment, but we would like to do that. So that's one of our next steps. At the moment, no. We need to do some studies before, some development to understand how we can model our data, how can we build digital twins. But we would like to go there, yes. Is predictive maintenance in use at Bachem? Not yet, but that's exactly another one of our objectives. We do see a lot of advantages in applying both digital twins and predictive maintenance, but the answer is not now, not yet. So I read the third one, if Edward is not back. What product you happened to use for your MES? So here I'm not trying to understand the question. So you mean which MES? So we use the PAS6 MES suite. If the question was not this one, maybe could the person expand on the question?
Okay, thank you, Patricia.
Hi, Elodie.
Sorry, I'm back. Okay, so we had I've seen that we have also another question regarding predictive maintenance. I don't know if you answered it already.
I answered already. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So then
the one now.
Yeah. Okay. So another one. Which are the main challenges that you have encountered when?
Okay. Yeah. There was one on value also in the list.
Okay, but we will come to that later. Maybe.
Okay. Sorry.
The challenge that you encounter during your full automation and digitalization of SPPS.
So in the planning, well, there were several. So we had challenges, first of all, on the technological point of view. So that was how do we implement automation? So how do we convert all steps which are now performed manually, which were performed manually before, into automated activities? And the most challenging one was the parallel transfer, as I said in the talk. This was how do we ensure that we transfer the whole amount of amino acid derivative, because for this type of reactions, it's really important to have exactly the amount that we need. And also, how do we make sure that we clean after the amino acid transfer? So how do we ensure that we don't have cross-contamination through the same transfer port? Because the reactor is one and the transfer port is the same for all amino acid derivatives. So this was one of the challenges. Another challenge was maybe more on the software point of view. So that was how do we design the interfaces? So we have several new systems. So we were in this project also introducing new pieces of software, and we had to basically design how the software communicates, so the different type of system communicates to each other, and which information goes in which direction, which information must be available in which system. And this was challenging in the sense that we really needed a lot of workshops, a lot of hours to define how we can do that.
Thank you, Patricia, for the explanation. Then we can maybe go with the Balu question. What system controls you have in place that Balu will perform all the time? And did you have already encountered malfunctioning with Balu?
So there are several controls. So we, as I said before, we need to make sure that the powder is fully transferred. That's one of the main tasks of Balu. So we have controls in place there so that we make sure that the robot takes the right vessel with the right amino acid and brings it to the activation reactor and fully transfers it. Exactly which type of controls or which type of sensors is not something that I'm allowed to share. Yeah, we do have several alarms in place to make sure that Balu does what it's supposed to do. Otherwise, there are corrective actions and alarms, and someone should go and fix the problem. Yes, there were problems in the testing phase. We had not only with Balu, we had it's also part of the game when we introduce new system. We do expect that something doesn't work properly, and we fixed all of them for our end-to-end test.
A few words where you can find more information. We have a blog about this on our website. We have brochures where you can find more information about our innovations. You find them easily explained in brochures that you can see here. Go to our website, go to the Knowledge Center. You will find them and enjoy reading. And with that, we thank you all very much for attending. Here you find our contact details, and we are looking forward to welcome you to our next webinar in December about mass spectrometry of oligonucleotides. And with that, goodbye for today.